I want to apologize to Francis Ngannou because I was wrong about him. I said that Francis went from being the baddest man on this planet to just another fighter who wants a boxing payday. But after showing us what he did against Tyson Fury, there's no doubt on my mind that Francis Ngannou is the baddest man on this planet. And if I'm Dana White, I have mixed emotions. And Francis, he walked away from the UFC. He didn't agree to their terms. He wanted to be in the UFC and have fights in the UFC. At the same time, he wanted to have boxing fights. The UFC did not want that. So what did Francis do? He went the other direction and decided to do boxing. And I was upset with that. I was like, bro, why are you doing this? The Jon Jones fight is done no more. That's not happening. We all wanted that fight. And I'm just like, what, Francis, what are you doing? Like, why sign with the PFL? I was just so upset with Francis. And I'm just, and almost to the point where I was like, why? Like, you're kind of wasting your career. But after seeing that fight against Tyson Fury, I somewhat understand Francis Ngannou's vision. I can see why he decided to walk away. And he bet on himself. He said, no, fuck that. I'm going to make this shit happen. I want to be an MMA fighter and I want to be a boxing fighter. And he did just that on Saturday night against Tyson Fury. And I am like, for real, I completely apologize because I was so wrong about Francis. And I'm so happy for him now because he, set his mind on these things and they're like happening. And everyone is talking about Francis now. And then who's going to fight? Anthony Joshua, Wilder, the running back with Fury. Usage could be on the conversation. And it's super exciting for Francis. And I'm like, man, he's going to have a fun and exciting boxing career. And we're going to talk all about the fight. So make sure you tune in. Hey guys, welcome to the False Line Podcast here with episode 174. Your host, Alvaro. Guys, we have a lot of things to kind of unpack after this weekend, and if you guys saw, I apologize, Francis. We're going to talk about the Francis fight and Tyson Fury. I want to talk about MMA versus boxing, and I want to talk a little bit about Justin Gaethje. So, this one should be fun. Like I said, I have a lot personally to unpack and to talk about, and I guess really just express. So, to talk about the fight, a little bit of what I mentioned on the last episode in my approach on the Tyson Fury and the Francis fight, I was like, this fight's almost pointless. I like, this fight makes no sense. This is probably the only fight that Francis is going to get in boxing. Tyson Fury already has his fight, ready for usage in December 20 something or 16. I don't know, right? It's in December. So I was like, this fight's just kind of like an exhibition. Like, it's just entertaining purposes. It's in Saudi. They had a little concert and everything. And I was just like, whatever, right? I wanted to watch it. Not going to lie. I wanted to see the outcome. Because you just never know. Like in boxing or in MMA or just in sports in general. You just never know, right? So I'm trying to, what is it like? So I'm just going to tell you guys like how I started watching the fight and the fight itself. So, I tune in and I see the undercard and I don't know who the fight, the co-main was, but watching that, but I was like, I'm finna just play FIFA for a little bit while they start up. And I was like, okay, I see the timer here. It says like they're going to start like in a few minutes. I have like 1 or 2 matches to play on FIFA. So let me play. So I started playing and then I had it on my phone then. And then I saw like the timer kind of reset to 40 minutes or something like that. And I was like, damn, what the heck? So like it almost felt like it was about an hour or more from when the co-main ended to when they fought because it had some concert and the intro. Like I said, I got to play a few games of FIFA. I think the fight started almost like at 6. It took a while for them to get going, which was a little weird, but I get it. It's in Saudi. They made it like kind of like a big event thing, and it was awesome to see, especially how the fight went. And I think it would have been a lot cooler if everyone took this fight serious. And obviously, there's reasons why we didn't. But it was cool. It was neat. It was really neat what they did for this fight. But I was just like, this is so extra. Why are we doing all this just for this exhibition match? And still, I was just like, Tyson Fury should go in there and just beat up Francis Ngannou, and I know that when Francis Ngannou was posting these videos on Instagram, I was like, bro, he's trolling. There's just no way that, he's trolling. The fact that you see no improvement is unbelievable. I was like, no, he's trolling. Like, these guys, they train, they get better, they look sharp, but he was clearly trolling. And and to get to the fight now, again, it was real cool to see them come out and all the events and everything they did for them. Cool to see all those boxers there. Cristiano was there, MMA fighters were there. They made it this huge deal, and it was awesome to see that, and it was cool. They wasted a lot of money, and it's just cool. Like that's how I could explain it. It was real cool, and it must have been nice being there. So. Francis walks out with Usman and Israel Adesanya, which I think was the coolest thing ever. And, you know, it kind of just shows you how cool they are and how they support each other. And, you know, Tyson Fury walks out. And I had a feeling, I was like, man, I wonder how serious, because the question to me was, I was like, I wonder how serious Tyson Fury, like, took this fight. Like, if he really trained, if he really had a camp. Because I'm pretty sure Francis was, like, training hard every day, right? Because this was his moment to prove all of us wrong. And for Fury, it's like, you know, you already agreed to your fight in December. Apparently, there's a contract, and he already signed it. And I was like, I wonder, like, how healthy he is, right? Because Tyson Fury, he's not, like, a shredded guy. He doesn't look fit at all. And it's kind of hard to tell how healthy he is. You know, and he's always looked like that in all his fights, so it's not any different. And that's the only thing I kept thinking about. So, you know, the fight starts, and I'm just like, okay, like, cool, whatever, you know, chill. Like, it's cool. And I forgot I think it was, I don't know what round, if it was the first or the second, but I saw Francis moving kind of like nice, and I was like, oh wow, like, you know, he looks good. And then, especially the second round, that's when I was like, okay, like, Francis can box. Like, he's in here. And I was like, okay, Tyson Fury is just kind of like, maybe going to try and get him tired and just touch him up, feel him up. And you know, just look for the keys or look what to capitalize on, right? And then we get to the third round, and we all know what happens there. Francis Ngannou gets, like, a short hook to the head and just drops Tyson Fury. And I want to talk about this for a moment because I was so confused when it happened because I didn't see it because of the angle of the camera. And this also, it was a short, like, hook. And I was like, you know, Francis hits hard. And the reason why I say he hits hard because we all seen Tyson Fury, you know, get dropped by Wilder and taking hits from Wilder, which is one of the strongest guys in boxing, and we've seen Tyson Fury drop Wilder and do, you know, ugly things to Wilder. So for Tyson Fury to get dropped like that, I was just like, what the fuck just happened? And Francis, at that moment, Francis just shocked the world completely. And I was just like, wow, truly just amazed. And from there on, it was game on for Francis. And Francis looked like a heavyweight boxer from there. And I was just so impressed. I was like, wow, Francis, you really are doing it. You really said, you know, it's easy to say these things and train and da-da-da-da, but to live up to that moment, you know, to show up and live up to the moment. And I was just blown away. And then, you know, the whole fight is just they're just exchanging back and forth. It was a good fight, I think. And then this is where I start to question Tyson Fury. And it was kind of really hard to tell, you know, it's like how good is Francis, right? You know, from the outside, we're like, oh, Francis looked great. He looked great. But you got to ask yourself, you know, is this the best version of Francis? And then we got a sloppy version of Tyson Fury? Or was Francis really just that good in the ring? And we just don't know. We don't know. And we're only going to know over time for both fighters, like whatever's next for them. So, you know, the fight continues. And I'm like, you know, we're at round 8 already, 8, 9. And I'm telling my girl, I was like, I think Francis is going to win this fight. It's really close. You know, there's not a huge gap. There's not like a clear winner, in my opinion. I know a lot of people think Francis won. But I'm like, there's not a huge gap here. And if we talk about A side and all that stuff, it's going to be Tyson Fury because he already has a fight next in Saudi Arabia, you know, the same place. I'm assuming same type of deal. So I was like, Tyson Fury has the upper hand here. Like, no, and that's just how it is. So I I was like, but Francis looked like he's winning the fight. Like, this is a close fight, and both guys were landing really good punches. Like I said, this was a solid fight. Excuse me. And I was entertained. I was like, wow, like I'm watching a boxing, like a heavyweight boxing match. I thought I was going to see Tyson Fury toy with Francis, if I'm being honest. And I thought that in the first round, but when you got to the 10th, I was like, wow, like I think Francis is going to win this fight. Clearly, we get to the end, and Tyson Fury wins the decision. So I'm not upset. I'm not like robbery or anything like that. I was just like, damn, like really, like, and I only said really because I think one of the scorecard, I don't remember, but I want to say it was like 26-30 if I'm not mistaken, but it was like a three numbers like difference, and I was like, I don't think it was like that gap for Tyson Fury was that big. Maybe for Francis, he had the same scorecard on the opposite side. I don't know, but either way, it was a split decision, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like, it was a tight fight, razor tight, whatever. It was a close fight, and I didn't see them giving the fight to Francis. I was like, and I hate saying this, but it didn't. There's no advantage or there's no gain, for Francis. I think if he would have got the win, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of like backlash on this, but let me explain myself here because, with Francis' performance in the knockdown, there's already a lot of chit chat or talk about, making other fights for him in boxing. For Fury, if he loses this fight, you're going into the usage fight with the lost. I don't know if they were fighting for all the belts or not. I don't think they were. And it just looks bad for Fury and then this event in general. And it kind of takes away from usage a little bit because, you're fighting, you're going to take the belts away from someone who just lost to this MMA fighter who had his first boxing match. So I can see and I understand why they would have, somewhat favored Tyson Fury and gave it to Fury. And it just makes sense. And then if I'm Francis, like, yeah, I'll be a little salty and a little upset. But I'm like, man, you did more than enough already, to prove everyone wrong. And then on top of that, like, bro, you're about to have paydays and leverage too, because you're like, hey, I went 10 rounds and arguably Tyson Fury. Like, you got to get me a nice cut. You get the sponsorships. Like, people are going to be like intrigued and attracted to Francis already just because of the fight that he had. So I'm not upset that they gave it to Tyson Fury. I completely understand. And unfortunately, I'm going to talk about this in a bit when we talk about boxing and MMA, about like, corruption and all that BS, right? So, and it is what it is, right? So we move on. We do the ring interview, and Francis is happy. I'm so happy for him. And I'm seeing him just talk, and he's like, I'm ready. Like, this was just a star and all these things. And I'm like, man, Francis, like you said, these things. I heard the Rogan podcast and I had so many mixed emotions. I was like, man, I don't know. Like, Francis, like, you're going to be irrelevant. Who's going to be watching your fights now? And now I'm invested in Francis. Like, I really am. And I want to see him box. And I hope, there's bigger fights for him in boxing and then versus MMA. So it's cool that he'll be able to do that. And I'm like, dude, just stick with boxing. We want to see you box, So hopefully he does that. And he's such a humble guy. And, he's just so nice, and everyone says good things about him. Now, for Tyson Fury, I don't know how he really feels, but if I'm him, I would be really upset, really disappointed, with the result. And you kind of have to deal with usage and that drama there, and that must suck. Because if I'm usage, I'm like, bro, what the fuck just happened? Not unless usage just knows that Tyson Fury was just BSing and kind of not really fighting. Then I understand. Usage, like, he doesn't really care, but I think usage just wants to beat Fury because he knows he's better. I think he can get it done, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But I don't know. Tyson Fury was in a weird spot because he arguably lost, and I don't think he really won. And yeah, I don't know, man. He wasn't like, oh yeah, I beat him. He kind of just had to give kudos to Francis. So very, very weird interaction for him, or a weird situation. So let's kind of talk about what's next for the fighters. We all know, I'll talk about Tyson Fury first. We all know the fight with him and usage is supposed to happen and December. I don't think that fight's going to happen in December because Tyson Fury took some damage. There's some pictures that came out today that I saw, and he looked pretty beat up, you know. And I was like, man, you're about to fight Usage, who's like, he wants to kick your ass. He wants to beat you, and he wants to just get the best of you, you know. And he just wants to fuck you up, and that's the truth. And he's been wanting this fight for the longest. And like for Tyson Fury being inactive for so long, and then to go and fight Francis and kind of get beat up a little bit, and that fight's about a month and a half away. In my opinion, he just doesn't have enough time to recover. He doesn't have enough time to probably just get ready and prepare for that fight for Usage. I still want to see the fight. I think it should still happen next, but like it's. I don't think when he fights Usage, I don't think Tyson Fury, it's not going to be a close fight. And I hate saying those words because I get trolled when I'm wrong, but I just don't see it happening. I really don't. And I like Usage. Don't get me wrong. He's a really good fighter, but his last fight, I wasn't too impressed. He did really good, but the man in the moment, you know, is Wilder. Like, he, to me, is the man at the heavyweight division right now. I want to see Wilder fight Usage. I don't think, you know, he needs to fight Tyson Fury if Usage beats him. But little side note, Wilder said that Ngannou is going to be Tyson Fury. And I was like, bro, you just salty because you lost to Fury. And the fact that he was low-key right, I was like, damn, I don't know if he knew something or he really just like believed in Francis' skills, or he was just, you know, being salty, or all the above. So it was really interesting. But I think also we are, you know, kind of getting the end of Tyson Fury's career. I believe he's like 38, if I'm not mistaken, if not a little bit older. And but I know he's getting close to 40. So I don't know, man. I think he's kind of being forced now to fight Usage, you know. And after this Francis fight, I don't know how he feels. I don't know if he's fine or whatever. But I'm like, bro, I don't know if you want to kind of go out that way and fight Usage. And I don't want to say like he should just go and retire, but he's just in a really tough situation. And if he doesn't beat Usage, not to take anything away from him, but he kind of just becomes a little bit irrelevant. And he was like the best heavyweight, and he like fucked up Wilder. And I'm not going to take that away from him, but only reason why I'm saying this because he talks a lot of shit. You know, he's on making videos about Usage and all these things, like just talking a lot of crazy stuff. And for Francis to humble you, it's like, you know, it's just kind of weird. So we'll see what's next for him. Hopefully he fights Usage, and hopefully not too soon, because I do want to see the best version of Fury, the best version that we can get. And I know Usage is ready, and I want to get that best version of him. And I just want to see a good ass fight between those guys, and I think it could be a classic. But I think Usage would get the better of him. So Francis Ngannou, what do we do with Francis? What's next for Francis? I don't want to see you fight MMA, Francis. I really don't. I want to see you box. I want to see you box against these heavyweights. Eddie Hearn, like low key salty. I don't know who's part of the zone. I want to say it's Anthony Joshua, but this fight was ESPN Top Rank, pay-per-view, whatever. But I don't know, man. Eddie Hearn, I feel like he's a salty dude right now, and he's just kind of throwing slugs at everybody. I know he said something about the KSI. Did he say something about KSI or Jake Paul? I don't know, but I know he said something about Canelo, and not like he was upset with Canelo, but he was like clearly salty, you know. And they were kind of doing their things together, whatever. But what the point is that, you know, he was just like, kind of saying that Joshua would, you know, mess up Tyson Fury and mess up, you know, Francis, and that that version of Fury was not him. Just kind of like low key taking away from Francis. That's how I took the video. So I was just like, I mean, I guess whatever. But Francis, I want to see you box. I want to see you fight Joshua. I want to see you fight. I mean, Andy Reid would be a really good fight, you know, because Andy Reid is not like top level, but it'll like draw some attention and sell you some pay-per-views. And then that I would think that's a good place to start with Andy Ruiz, and it's a good fight for both of those guys. To be honest with you, if Andy Ruiz loses, it kind of he would lose a lot if he lost that fight, if I'm being honest. But for Francis, I'm like, hey, like that's a good stepping stone for you, and then you move up to the next one. I think the Joshua fight would be good too. I thought it was crazy that Eddie Hearn says that Joshua only needs 3 rounds with Francis. I'm like, bro, you're insane for thinking that, because I think Joshua is a little overrated and clearly is a sore loser when he loses. So I think the Anthony Joshua fight would be really good too. And it would just be competitive, and Francis could do something there. Now the banger that I would love to see, but I would want to see Francis get 2 wins under his belt, or under, whatever, under his name. I would love to see Francis fight Wilder. I'm telling you, Wilder to me is the heavyweight man. Like, he's that guy right now. I know he lost to Fury, but I mean, ever since then, like, he's been looking nice and scary, and he has a nasty he has just mean, bro, just punches so hard. And him and Ngannou would, if Ngannou gets better, it would just be crazy, man. Like, it would be a banger. And I would love to see that fight between him and Francis. So, but the point is, I want to see Francis fight in boxing, and just, get big paydays, get these sponsorships, and do the positive things that he's been doing for himself and for other people around him and for the sport. And just show to the world, and lay out the blueprint that you can do MMA, you can do boxing. And this guy went from being the face of the heavyweight division, and kind of the face of the UFC. And he walked away from all of that because he decided that he can do bigger and better things than the UFC, him on his own. And Francis did just fucking that. He did it. And again, I just want to see him fight boxing. It's just so fun. It's fun. It's just so fun and exciting. So hopefully we can see him in boxing. And in MMA, the only fight, in my opinion, that makes sense would be the Jon Jones fight. If Jon Jones fought, I really do think Francis would get the better of Jon Jones. But I'm just saying that because, Francis just looked great. And I'm like, bro, if he could put his mind into this boxing fight, he could put his mind into MMA. And to fight Jon Jones is just I would say, Francis would get the best of him, but we don't know, right? I think it would just be a good ass fight though. So, maybe, and hopefully, they can do a crossover one day, and with Francis and Jon Jones when I say one day, like next year, because both guys ain't getting any younger, and we want to see kind of the best versions of them. So that's that. But let me know what you guys thought overall about the fight, about Francis, about Tyson. Just let me know. Let me know below. Let's move on. Let's talk about MMA and versus boxing. So the first thing I want to mention is what I said earlier about A-side and, giving it to somebody, and, you could say corruption. And it's like this in every sport. And it's just the reality, and I don't want to say and speak like, oh, we live in this fair world, because we don't. Unfortunately, money is a big motive for whatever. Money gets people going. Money, is just, unfortunately, that's just how it is, right? So, like I mentioned earlier with it made sense for them to give it to Fury, financially, and the pay-per-view, whatever perspective, it just made sense to give it to Tyson Fury because, Tyson Fury had everything to lose, and he's the boxer. Francis Ngannou, his first fight, this could have been a fluke or not, we don't know. What if he gets he wins, and then he goes fights Joshua, and then gets knocked out? Like, that could happen too. And then it's like, oh, Francis was just like a one-hit wonder type of thing. And the safest thing is just like, okay, we'll just give it to Fury. It's a close decision, whatever. People are going to get over it, in a few days. This shit happens all the time. So, and that does happen. Like, every boxing fight, MMA fight, especially like big ones, like when we talk about big names, pay-per-view names, like those names, always one fighter already is ahead before the ring even starts. If Canelo, before he fought Mayweather, every Canelo fight, Canelo was already up in the scorecards because he's the draw, he's the pull, he's the reason why we buy pay-per-views and why we go and buy tickets to go watch him in the arena. He's the reason why. So every fight, Canelo is already up in the scorecards. And you guys might be like, oh, that shit sucks. And it does suck. But that's the fucking reality. Like, it's the truth. You know, when we talk about, like, UFC fights, when we have, like, you know, Khabib, or not Khabib, when we have, I'm trying to think of a good one. Like, when Conor fights whoever, Conor's already, when he fought Nate Diaz the second time, Conor is already up in the scorecards because of the fighter who he is. He brings the pay-per-view buys. Everyone's watching because of him. The arena is going crazy because of him. Like, he's already up in the scorecards. Like, that's just how it is. You know, when a champion fights in the UFC, like Volkanovski, Islam, when Charles was champion, Jon Jones, like any champion that fights in the UFC, they are always up in the scorecards. Always, 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 always. Like, no matter what. And that's just how it is, you know? And again, I'm sorry, like, and I know you guys be like, oh, like that shit's rigged or that shit's stupid. Like, and it is dominant. Sometimes it is rigged and sometimes it is corrupt. But unfortunately, that's just how it is. You know, and when we see close decisions, you know, especially like for titles, when Volkanovski, you know, I don't want to use that example. I'm sorry, because, you know, I think Volkanovski did enough. But when Brandon Moreno fought Pantoja, that was a really, really, really close fight. But you know, you got to look at it like, okay, Brandon Moreno's a champion. Did Pantoja do enough to show the world that he took the king's, you know, crown or throne? Like, did he do enough? Because you have to go walk into, this is the way I always see every championship fight. Like, the king is in his kingdom, nice and comfy, like a G. There's this, you know, protege or whatever. He has to walk in that kingdom. And he has to fight all the battles and then fight the king and then get out of that kingdom alive. And then, you know, he'll be the king or whatever. It's a weird analogy, but that's just how I see it. And if a fighter doesn't go in there and do more than enough and takes that fucking throne from the champion, unfortunately, you just don't win. And it's like that in every sport. So, like, we as fans, you know, and you know, people to maybe that listen to it, it's like, that's just how it is. And I think that's just, you know, like the reality of it. And it sucks because there's some fighters that should be winning, or there's some fighters that should have been champions, or there's some fights that kind of, you know, should have gone a different way, but they didn't because, you know, of the name, like Canelo. Like, when Canelo fought Triple G the first time, I thought Canelo lost that fight. The only reason why Canelo won is because Canelo won, but the only reason why it was a draw, it's because it's Canelo. Like, that's it. When Bivol beat Canelo, like, you couldn't give that fight to Canelo. Like, it was just too obvious. But when they're close, like we saw in the Triple G fight, they'll give it a draw. They won't give it to Triple G. Like, and they robbed Triple G. They did. You know, but it was a really tight fight. And they did what they had to do. And unfortunately, that's just how it works. And we've seen it all the time with sports. And that's why I don't even get upset about when I see that shit no more. I'm just like, man, that's just how it is. Like, that's just how it is. So, people make the comparison with MMA and boxing. I've seen a lot of that this weekend with Francis. And I'm just like, I don't want to see that, man. They're two different sports, two different arts, two different ways of fighting. And I know Francis did really good, but, you know, this is, out of all the MMA fighters fighting in boxing, Francis still lost, and he was been the first one to actually look good in the boxing ring. You know, we've seen MMA fighters fight boxing, you know, Anderson Silva fought Jake Paul and other fights that he had, and, you know, so on. But none of them, and they still haven't, you know, beat a real boxer. And I don't think we'll ever see an MMA fighter besides Francis probably now, you know, but I think he's just a rare case, to be honest with you. But I don't think we'll see many MMA fighters be able to beat boxers. You know, I know Sean talks about boxing, but I'm just like, bro, I know you have nice hands and you fucking are nice, but, you know, Devin Haney keeps saying, like, bro, it just wouldn't be close. And then I agree, it just wouldn't. Like, it's just a whole different way of fighting. you know, and there's just no chance. There's just no chance until it happens, till it happens, or we're proved wrong. Like, I'm going to keep saying that. Like, no active champion in the UFC right now can go and be an active champion in, like, one of the biggest champions, like, in boxing. You know, like Islam is not going to beat Canelo. Like, there's just no way. Right. Let's see who else. Sean Strickland, he's not beating Canelo. Let's see who else. Israel Adesanya could never, like, beat Canelo. Like, it's just, like, we think about these names, like, no, like, it's just impossible. Like, it's not gonna happen. Devin Haney, Canelo, they go into a UFC cage. They get annihilated. They're getting killed. Like, it's just how it is, you know. And I hate seeing the comparison. I really do, because I'm like, they're two different sports. Now, the only reason why, you know, MMA is so, you know, relevant, and I'm not trying to be ugly here, but it's because of the UFC. You know, I know there's other organizations, ONE FC, there's Cage Warriors, there's a few others, right? But no one's big as the UFC. And we didn't really watch MMA till the UFC really got popular. And it's been growing like crazy these last few years. Like, everyone knows and is adopting the UFC and just respecting it almost as boxing. So, you know, but I still, and like I said, I don't like making the comparison. Like, they're just two different sports. It's like soccer and football. Like, it's just two different sports. I know that it's fighting, but it's just completely different. It's still different. The ring's different. The training's, everything's different, man. Everything's different. So I hate that I'm watching the comparisons on Twitter. MMA superior than boxing, And boxing just has a problem with, like, promotions and, like, corruption. Like, they are, you know, what is it called? Like, you know, they're just trying to make the most money, and boxing's been like that. You know, and besides the UFC, there's no other organization like the UFC, you know, ONE FC and other organizations, but the UFC is just so big, like, so big that they have such a huge roster, and they have a crazy way to promote their fights, and they just did it really, really good. Like, they had a good team. They just fucking did it, and it's impressive. But there's nothing else like the UFC, and that's why we enjoy MMA so much, because of the UFC. But if these fighters were all in different organizations, we wouldn't be watching Conor. We wouldn't be watching Moreno. We wouldn't be watching Izzy. Like, nobody knew about Izzy like that till he got into the UFC, but he had over 100 fights in kickboxing. So I hate seeing that comparison, because I'm like it just doesn't make sense, you know. And it's you can't say one's superior than the other. You just can't. We can't say boxers are better than MMA fighters, or MMA fighters are better than boxers. Like, that just doesn't work. And I know that there's some MMA fighters or boxers that think like, oh, I'm better than, you know, so and so or whatever. And I get it. They have ego. They fight for a living, so I understand why they think that. So, but I just hate seeing the comparison, because I'm just like, no sport's better. Like, if Canelo's fighting, I want to see that fight, no matter what. If Charles is fighting, I want to see that fucking fight, no matter what. You know, Ryan Garcia, Gervonta, Devin Haney, you know, Teofimo. Like, if these guys are fighting, I'm going to watch. I'm going to tune in. Same thing with UFC. If so-and-so's fighting, I'm going to tune in and I'm going to watch. It's the same approach, and I get the same, like, adrenaline. Like, I get the same excitement. You know, I enjoy UFC a lot more, and I watch it a lot more. But that's just like me. Like, I just like the UFC better, and I just find it a lot more entertaining, and I just love it. But but with boxing, like, you don't like a promotion. You're not like, oh, I like Showtime and I like their list of fighters. I like the UFC. You know, you like one guy. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but the point is, I hate seeing the comparison. Two different sports. Let's just enjoy the sports. And boxing is going through a change. Boxing will change, and it will adapt, and it will be different from here on out. Like, it is going to be different for many reasons, right? You know, fighters understanding that they deserve to get paid better, The UFC sometimes getting better numbers than boxing, and they got to get their shit right. And boxing was forced to make mega fights. It's not like boxing all of a sudden decided to make these fights happen. The reason why boxing decided to make mega fights, it's because of the UFC. Because if not, we would have been having the same shit of boxing that we've been having for the last 20 years. And this year has been the year of boxing because of the UFC. If I'm being real, everyone's tuning into the UFC and seeing these mega fights in the UFC. And it was like back to back to back, right? And like during COVID and everything. With boxing, we wanted to see the Ryan Garcia and Gervonta fight. We wanted to see the Crawford and Spence fight. We just never would get it. We would never get it. And then, like I said, the only reason why these fights started to happen is because of money. They saw the UFC was doing better. So they were like, hey, we don't got a choice here but make these fights. And these boxers are starting to understand that. And, that record, like, being 10-0, 20-0, 40-0, whatever, it's starting to like become less relevant, and they're just risking the record and making good fights. And that's how it should be in boxing and in MMA. Like, just make the best fights happen. People will tune in, and we'll just be invested in that fighter from now on if the performance is fucking amazing. We are like Charles Oliveira, and I know I'm bringing him up, but he, how many fights did he give up on? And now he's like a fan favorite. Like his record don't matter. Like, we just love Charles and we believe that he'll win. That's one really good example. I can't think of a boxer right now. Like Teofimo Lopez, he lost to Kambosos, but I really think that he's going to be the superior boxer of probably all like the guys right now. And I would love to see him fight Devin Haney. I think that would be a mega fight. And he has a loss on his record, and eventually Gervonta and Devin Haney will have a loss on the record too, and they shouldn't care about being undefeated. It doesn't matter. Like, who cares, man? Just make the best fights, and that's all we want to see as fans. Like, we just want to be entertained by the best fights, and as long as you keep making the best fights, as fans, we're going to pay for these pay-per-views and just tune in and watch and post and do what we do. So. Yeah. All right. I've been talking a lot. Last thing, I want to talk about Justin Gaethje before I head out here. So, Justin Gaethje, I know when Islam and Volk fought. when Islam and Volk fought, they asked Justin if he was offered the fight. He said no. He said yes. And he said no. They told him why. And he says, it's not my job. And I completely understand why Justin Gaethje didn't take the fight. And he also said that he's willing to wait about a year to fight Islam. He's not Russian. And I'm just like, damn, like, why is Justin being like this? Why is he, like, what's going on here? So I forgot, when he fought Fiziev, he said, people said, like, what's next for him? And he said, I want to give it one more go at gold. And that's it. And he went on and fought Dustin Poirier. And then, that fight, it was like whoever loses that fight is probably going to say goodbye to a UFC championship down the road. Unless like someone like drops from the fight and someone got to step up, right? So to get the knockout like the way Justin Gaethje did, and being the person he is in the UFC and how long he's been in the UFC and how entertaining he's been and everything, to get a knockout like that over Dustin Poirier, it makes sense why he could be next for the title. Like, I'm being honest, like, we don't want to see him fight Charles again. Like, we just don't, right? Charles also lost to Islam. Charles beat Justin, but Justin just got this crazy knockout. Islam was supposed to fight Charles. It's all kind of mixed over, but I think it's between Charles and Justin Gaethje when we talk about who's next for Islam Makhachev. And and this is Justin Gaethje, last opportunity to be champion. This is it. His next fight is going to be for a title. And it might or may not be his last fight. I think, he wants to be champion just one time and then end his career, and I completely understand it because Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje been in the division, including Tony. They've been on the division and so active for so long, and for them, to fail, like they lost to Khabib and then they both lose to Charles, and it's like, damn, 2 title fights and you guys lost. So, for them to fall short, and then now Justin Gaethje has this one opportunity, and he's like, nah, like, I'm not going to step up out of desperation to get the belt and fight the best version of Islam. I'll take my time. On top of that, I'll wait after Charles and Islam fight, and then I'll be next. And I'm like, damn, like, good for you, Justin. I'm happy that he's making that choice because he knows that he only has 1 or 2 fights left in the UFC, and that is it for him. And I think Dana White respects that, and I'm happy that he does because what Justin Gaethje's done in the UFC, he's just a fucking legend in the game and in the division. Like, he's crazy, man. He's awesome to see, awesome to watch. So, I don't know. I haven't seen too much backlash on Justin Gaethje's decisions, but I just brought it up because I was like, man, like, why does he want to wait? And then I was like, oh, like I remember like the post fight after Fiziev, he said, I don't want to fight these, contenders. I just want to give it one more go at the belt. And, if I get it, I get it. And if I don't, that's it. He goes out and just KOs Dustin Poirier, like lights out, makes a statement, and his next fight will be for a title. And I don't know if he'll be able to, become champion, because whether it's Charles or Islam that he fights next for a title, it would be a good fight. I would want to see him and Islam run it because I just want to see that matchup so bad. But I don't know. Whatever happens next for Justin Gaethje, I just hope it is for a title shot. And I would just love to see that version of Justin Gaethje, like his last title shot. Like, that's the last one. When you got to put it all out in the ring. So to see that version of Justin Gaethje would be really, really scary for the guy who's going to fight him. And, it'll just be entertaining for us. So I just wanted to speak about that about Justin Gaethje because he's reaching the end of his career, and he wants to go out with the bang, and it would be so cool to see him go out in the bang. But let me know what you guys think about Justin Gaethje and what's next for him, But guys, that's the end of the episode. A little long one again. I didn't think it was going to be that long, but after yesterday's fight, I was like, man, we got content. So let me know what you guys think. Anything that you guys want me to talk about, let me know. I'll reply to the comments on YouTube. I do my very best to do so. I'll see you guys on the next one. Hope you guys have a great week, and happy Tuesday. Peace.